I'm telling you, Chris, this is the new technology. It's gonna bring new life to this franchise.
What year is this?
Get going.
2010?
No, I don't think so.
I sniffed glue earlier. I might be getting my years mixed up.
Yeah, that makes sense. I could have swore this was 2024. So I'm working on Sonic Adventure. And I know that you, have a thing with that one.
Do I now?
So if I could just get your opinion on it, just something light,
Chris, my opinion is that game is in the past. It's time to move on from it. This right here, Freeriders, this is the future. I do not like this. It is the menu's not working, Chris.
Yeah. Well, despite the fact that my show is all about the past, and argumentatively this is the past, I think that, screw it, whatever. Well, here I go.
Oh, are you leaving?
Yeah.
Alright, fading away. Fading away to the white void. See ya. Ah, wait, fuck, I'm going too. You prompted me, Chris. God damn it.
So, hey everybody, welcome to Nostalgia Goggles. I'm Chris, also known as Retro Gaming Nerd, and today we're going to talk about if Sonic Adventure is still worth playing today.
I'm going to talk about it too.
How did you get here?
I don't know, it just happens.
Well, with that being said, let's get into the story. So the story of Sonic Adventure is deeper than you would expect. The main story that pushes the rest of the narratives along is that Dr. Robotnik, also known as Eggman around this time, in America, we kind of called him Robotnik, but it was really Eggman, but this is where we started getting into that whole thing of Eggman. Sonic kind of eggs him on, no pun intended, but that's not important, so I'm going to refer to him as Eggman from this point on, but the game also calls him Robotnik. So with that being said, Eggman attempts to summon a god to take over the world. This god is also known as Chaos, the same god that was involved in wiping out Knuckles' race, and marking one of the first times that Sonic had to deal with an otherworldly being. The events that unfold in this game drag in many of Sonic's friends on complete accident, because realistically they all kind of have to cross paths as Eggman in his quest to get the Chaos Emeralds to power up Chaos. With that being said, one of the things I really like about the story and narrative of this game is the fact that Robotnik and/or Eggman has the audacity to think that he can control a god. That right there fits the character more than any other thing expected in this game, because there's some kind of hubris that Robotnik has that just really feels like that would be something, and this game definitely feels that way as well. I like how this game's story plays out. It's a little bit of a mess, and at multiple times within the story, how it really unfolds is through flashbacks, but the flashbacks are kind of incohesive because they split between multiple characters. So at the end of the day, if you play this game at a very slow pace, you're going to be confused. But the stories themselves are good by themselves, but the main story of Chaos just kind of gets lost by the wayside, where all the personal stories feel really good. But all in all, this game does a really good job, especially being one of the first few games to have a story like this outside of the comics. So, with that being said, let's move on to the gameplay. Sonic Adventure 1 is wildly interesting when it comes to the translation of a 3D franchised game. Most 3D games kind of try to navigate the concept of what a 3D mascot character would be like with only one character, where Sonic Adventure chose to do the Sonic cast at the time, including 2 new characters, which I think is wildly interesting. Now, I understand that not everybody likes all these other characters, but I have to say that these other characters are competently done. You are able to play as Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, Amy, Big, and E101 Gamma. Each character plays differently. Sonic plays how you would traditionally think of Sonic within the 3D space today. Tails' gameplay is interesting because it's more of a race against Sonic. Knuckles is finding the Master Emeralds, Amy is running away from a robot and trying to escape out of a level, Big is fishing, and E101 Gamma is a shooting gallery. Each one of these are done competently, which is something that I think is majorly interesting, because once again, around this time, we only had them focusing on one mascot character. Now, I can see where you might not like these characters, especially since, yes, it does break the flow of gameplay, and there is things within this game that breaks the flow of gameplay, but in truth, I think that altogether, we have to acknowledge that these characters are very well done, and I think that that's something that is interesting. It's practically like programming multiple games into one. Now, I feel like definitely the biggest issue that I've noticed of people in the past is that they have a preference, and that's perfectly fine to have a preference. Sonic is my favorite and also is the best, but all in all, I think all the other characters work out well. Another thing that's interesting about the gameplay is not only the fact that the characters are separate, there is mini games and also a whole simulation game within it with the Chow Guard, which is wildly interesting. I do not know what the development team was on back in the day, but they were on some mad crazy shit that I would love to see in modern video games today, because they could have just stopped at the story modes and having multiple characters, but instead they put in mini games and they put in a life simulator, and they also put in challenges alongside with the DX version of the game, Game Gear and classic Sonic games. This is wild shit for an old game, and I think that that's great. A lot of video games today don't have this level of detail and intricacy that went into what Sonic Adventure did, and I think that that's what makes this game outstanding. With that being said, I do definitely think that there are some gameplay issues with certain versions of the game. I don't want to throw one specific one under the bus, but I think when it gets right down to it, the DX version is where I've had most collision-based issues of where I fell through the floor a few times, and I have no clue why that is, but all the rest of the versions seem pretty fine. I think that also might just be because I've played the DX one, and I know where all the stuff is. I'm not saying that all the versions are perfect, but I am saying that the one that I've had the most issues is with that one. I've heard a lot of people say that this is a glitchy mess of a game, but I have not had that many issues with it. They exist for sure, but they're not something that I've came across too much. With all that being said though, I think that this game did an amazing job at what it was trying to do, and I think it went above and beyond. This game is competently put together. I know that Sonic seems to be like the best option, but I feel like if you step back, this game is super impressive outside of a preference that you have for one specific character. With all that being said, I think it's about time that I give it over to Spiny for gameplay.
Alright, it's your boy Spiny here, about to lay down the law on gameplay here. Tails sucks, Amy sucks, Knuckles sucks, Big is epic, Gamma sucks, and Sonic is pretty good. Honestly, I do think Sonic is the only one with S-tier gameplay in this game, but the others kinda make up for it with the story. Sonic's got a pretty basic story, stop the bad guy. Meanwhile, Tails and Amy have stories of personal growth, Gamma's story is honest to god a tragedy, Knuckles' story adds a lot to his own history as well as the lore of the Master Emerald, and Big is just kind of entertaining, being a fish out of water. He's in the story, but more so as a bystander who got sucked in by accident. Kind of reminds me of the lumberjack from Hoodwinked, if anyone remembers that movie. People probably do, I see videos pop up from time to time. Honestly, I even kind of prefer how they implement him into this game's story. Like, I think he just works off better as someone who has no idea what the fuck is going on. He has no connection to these guys. But nah, in later games, he's kind of their buddy. He's friends with everybody. Shitting on Big the Cat has always been a go-to move when talking about Sonic games. He's up there with the Werehog and Sonic 06. And like game journalists, with Sonic 06 being their only frame of reference, I think the Big the Cat hatred was excessive, but I'm not the first person to call that out, because putting this fucker in modern Sonic projects has become a pretty popular move. Big started to get some love up to the point where I feel like a lot of people have reverted back to hating him. Ignoring all this character's history and just focusing on the gameplay in this game, I mean, it's fine. The entire game is supposed to feel like one big adventure, and Big's parts are the more relaxed part of this adventure. If you know what you're doing, you can clear his stages in seconds, but the game itself didn't do a good job at communicating this. It might have been explained better in the manual, but like, come on, casual players were well past reading manuals at this point in time. How old were you when this game came out? 3? Oh yeah, so you definitely knew whether or not people were reading manuals then. You... who the fuck even asked you? This isn't even my channel, fuck off! Am I allowed to say fuck on your channel, Chris? Just bleep over it or cut it out entirely. It was just stupid fucking Dr. Howard anyways. Fuck him. Gamma stages are really short and easy, except for the final one where you actually do need to manage your time better. I think Gamma's controls are better than the ones in Sonic Adventure 2 with the mech stages, but Sonic Adventure 2 designed a level specifically made for the mech suits, and ultimately I do feel like they feel like more complete stages. I feel the same way about Knuckles. I appreciate his treasure tracker in the first adventure game, being able to track down all 3 emeralds in any order, but the sequel crafted levels specifically for Knuckles and Rouge, while Adventure 1 just was like, take this portion of a Sonic level and go to town. I also prefer the way Knuckles controls in Adventure 2. He feels a little slippery in Adventure 1, but I do like the treasure hunting stages. I always have. And I even think the Sonic Adventure 1 stages are decent. You know, it gives you an excuse to explore these areas more thoroughly, since the objective is no longer run through them as quickly as possible. That combined with the climbing and gliding ability, yeah, I think these stages offer a very different experience. I think there's tons of stuff in the casino level that you wouldn't even bother to explore as Sonic, because there's really no reason to. But meanwhile with Knuckles, yeah, you're kind of getting a completely different different experience out of that level. That part specifically felt like it was more designed for Knuckles. If they just sped Amy up a bit, I think her mode would be great. The hammer abilities are fun to use, and they can be used to speed Amy up and have her hit max speed quicker, but having those hammer moves paired with an even faster Amy would have made her a lot more fun to control. That robot chasing her gets really annoying after a while, so giving you an Amy that could really beat the hell out of it and make it stop for a longer period of time, based on the way you attacked it, would have also done her mode so many favors. Still, her story is one of the better ones in Sonic Adventure, and she does do a lot for Gamma's story as well. Tails is fun to control. I have fun just seeing how much of a level I can skip with his flying. I do appreciate the freedom they give you with this character in this game, but the stages are nearly impossible to lose. Eggman puts up a little bit of a fight, I guess. I mean, it is actually possible to lose to him if you don't know where you're going, I suppose. But with Sonic, I mean, you would have to stand in place in order for him to win. Hell, you might even need to stand in place near the end of the level for him to win. His character might actually get lost if you don't. Sonic's AI in the races might be the worst AI I've ever seen in a game before, but it's up to a point where it almost feels deliberate, like the game doesn't want you to lose. It's really bizarre. I think with Eggman being a final race and him being able to float, it just made it so the AI was smarter or had an easier time making it to the end. Hard to really say what their mindset was when making this. But yeah, Tails levels, most of them are impossible to lose unless you want to lose. I've never struggled with them, but it's still relatively fun to fly around these stages with him, and his mode does end with a decent boss fight. Like Amy, I think his narrative is a stronger part of his mode. And then there's good old Sonic. I don't think any of the characters really even come close to being as fun to control as Sonic, but that's why the main guy gets 10 stages. That's double the amount that Knuckles, Tails, and Gamma get, and even more than double for Amy and Big. What can I say? Whether it was intentional or not, I think Adventure made the most fun version of Sonic to control ever made. Call that spin dash broken if you want to, it makes up so much of the best parts of this game. I love using that thing to reach areas you're probably not supposed to access. Maybe all of this was 100% intentional, and they just accepted it wasn't going to be the most polished character gameplay-wise. I think the fun you can have with this character beats any of Sonic's more polished gameplay. Like in the Boost games, which I do like by the way, but I always thought it was such a bummer that we only got this Sonic in this game. Even Adventure 2 did a lot to clean up the way this character moves, and it's still a lot of fun. I think as a whole I do prefer Adventure 2 to Adventure 1. It had a better story and made corrections to the treasure hunting and mech stages that made for better alternative gameplay styles. But there was lost potential with Sonic, I must say. There's a game being worked on right now called Hot Job 94 that has taken a lot of inspiration from Sonic Adventure of how the characters move, and the layouts of the stages. And it's great to see other people trying to keep this feeling alive. All in all, Sonic is the reason to play this game. But every time I play it, I never stop after clearing Sonic's campaign. The other 5 are still at least worth checking out. And that final Super Sonic fight is pretty good too, so you don't really want to miss out on that. I don't think Open Your Heart is quite as good as Live and Learn, and again, I prefer Sonic Adventure 2's story, but I would go as far as to say it's a more challenging and fun fight than the BioLizard. Presentation-wise, I think the two are neck and neck. Adventure 1 with this devastating look at Station Square, a town that we spent the entire game running around in, and Adventure 2 with the introduction of Super Shadow and the fight taking place in space. Both are really solid endings to their games. Anyways, that's enough rambling for me. Handing it back over to Chris.
I absolutely love the aesthetic of Sonic Adventure. I know that it's not really much to look at today, but if you think about it, this is the jump that Sonic had from 2D to 3D, and they did an outstanding job for it. And the thing that's very interesting is that this one doesn't rely too much on the past. They decided to make new Batnik and new whole kind of aesthetic, even down to Sonic and the other characters. They don't look the same as they used to, and that's something that's just crazy to just think about how well they not only introduced but transitioned Sonic in from 2D to 3D. I think the other thing is that the aesthetic of the game is also madly unforgettable. The level design itself, it's just beautiful. It hits the nail on the head in a very great way, and it puts Sonic in a more realistic kind of a setting. It still has Sonicisms like the loop-de-loops and the weird, turny-doos, but it's definitely more grounded in a realistic aesthetic, and I really enjoy that. Another thing that's interesting about this game's presentation is that the music is also just downright amazing. I think that this game just does an amazing job at presenting itself. There is so much to talk about, but this game oozes with aesthetic. So much so in the new Sonic generation, you can see that they have the skin returning of Sonic Adventure 1 Sonic. I will say that some of it doesn't work out well, mainly in the port of Sonic DX. I will kind of have to admit that yes, the characters run a little little bit more on the shiny side, but I feel like that's not the biggest issue, especially since the Steam port has toned it down, and even with how shiny that one is, you can get mods to make it look more like the original Dreamcast version. I understand that Spiny prefers the Dreamcast aesthetic, but I think all in all, this game's aesthetic never really lost its shine. I love everything that this game does aesthetically. It works out super well, and I think that it's a treat to see. With that being said, I do think that some of the things might not have aged super well. For instance, the egg carrier in some scenes looks weird, some things look a little janky, some things don't look altogether there, but I think that's just kind of the time, realistically. They did what they could with it, and I'd love to see a remake, so maybe that they can fix the minor things that I see with it. But in truth, that's really all I have to say. It's really hard for me to talk about the negative parts because I just kind of am nostalgically blinded with how awesome and how cool this game looks. With that being said, let's move back on to the accessibility. Hey Spine, you actually gonna join for this one?
Yeah.
Okay. So with that being said, the accessibility for Sonic Adventure is a fucking dream, dude. Which is not a joke because it was obviously first released on the Dreamcast. But if you're trying to get your hands on this game, it came out for so many goddamn consoles. For the Dreamcast itself, GameCube, Xbox 360, Steam. You can play this game almost fucking anywhere.
PS3 had it too. Wait, no, they only had Adventure 2. Scratch that! I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Anyways, with that being said though, let's kind of get into the prices. Realistically, for the Dreamcast, there's two versions of this game that came out. There's the Sega All-Stars Collection, which is just the greatest hits version. This comes down to more of like a collector's issue if you give a shit on how the box looks. But you'll pay about $50 to $70 for this game, which is fucking ridiculous. I think the game is great, but that's a lot of money, especially since the other ports that are here are, I feel, as acceptable and as good. For instance, the next version that came out was Sonic DX. Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut. How the fuck do you pronounce this one?
Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut.
Okay.
But it definitely only needed one or the other. I don't know why it's DX and Director's Cut. It's kind of a weird choice.
Well, I mean, I've had fights over this, but anyways, this one will set you back about $50 to $36, which is not a bad price, especially for GameCube games, since GameCube games are fucking expensive as shit.
I think my only gripe with the ports of this game is they all tend to be DX, even on Xbox One or Xbox 360 if you're getting it on the store there. It will show the adventure, like the original adventure box art and not the DX box art. But then you are buying DX. Like, it's not even labeled as Sonic Adventure DX, but it's always the DX version. And I'm fine with DX. That's the one. It's really the one I've spent most of my life playing. But I know a lot of people want the Dreamcast one, and I think it'd be cool if like the ports could give you options to like kind of switch back and forth a bit. But it is still cool how easy it is to get your hands on this game.
And with that being said, there's one more physical collection that you can get your hands on, which is the Dreamcast collection that came out on the Xbox 360, and that game will set you back about $44 to $47, which I think is reasonable, especially since this game comes with Big Bass Fishing, Sonic Adventure, Space Channel 5 Part 2, and Crazy Taxi, which I think is worth it because you're getting multiple games within just one disc, and I think that that's really what makes it great.
Now, does that game do the Dreamcast port or the DX port?
It probably is the DX port in reality. I don't own it.
Okay. Interesting.
So we'll be back here again probably for me to talk about the collections. I'm gonna do a Sonic Collections video at some point that you'll probably be forced to be in. But because there's a lot of them. For me, I think, however, oh, and then there's obviously the Steam version, which I don't like putting Steam prices in because like they fluctuate so much. Because I could say like $20 to $15, and I feel like that's reasonable. But I feel like that's the version that is on most places. I think that's even the console version today on Xbox One and all that other stuff. I believe it's the Steam port.
It's probably also the most accessible one because maybe you don't have an old console anymore, maybe you gave it away, or yada yada yada. But everybody, like, most people have some sort of computer at this point, and it runs on even shitty computers because my old computer was a piece of shit, but it wasn't able to handle most of my games. But it could play Sonic Adventure, let me tell you.
Now, with all that being said, though, this is one of the most accessible games, but I will bring up one of the biggest issues that is on the collector side and on the nerdier side, and that is the Dreamcast version is the only version to have the DLC to it. There has been DLC that is lost to time, because, well, the Sega computer, whatever bullshit, is no longer up. And the DLC is very inconsequential to some people, but for people like me that likes to talk about accessibility and likes to talk about preservation, it does suck that we don't have the Christmas and the Halloween DLC that was there. And it'd be really nice if we finally got one more redo on it that allowed, as Spiny has said, that allows us to go back and forth through it and also just has it there inherently. But that might be hard due to the fact that they might not have that anymore. I would absolutely love to see one more director's cut. It's actually kind of funny that they called the GameCube one director's cut when it is missing some stuff. Even though it does add some stuff, obviously, but I talk about that in the gameplay segment, you know, with the missions and the Game Gear versions. Which one is your version that you think is worth it for you to play, actually?
When I was a kid, DX for GameCube was the first one I had. It was most, you know, obviously that was the one I played every day, but don't have the game anymore, and even then I took shit care of my games back then, so I don't even think mine worked anymore when I put it in the GameCube by the time end of the time I had it. But then on top of that, I do have it for Steam. I have it for Xbox One. So, I mean, you know, because you can still buy some of the 360 games on Xbox One. So both ports I think are fine. I prefer my computer, but that's mainly just because, like, adding fun mods to it is more doable that way, and it's just like, you know, I do a lot of recording and streaming and stuff, so hey, it's an easier way to stream it. So PC is my preferred way of playing it, but you know, to each their own. I could imagine someone preferring to play it on a console, not set up their computer to play it. More of a lie in bed, enjoy the comfort. Ultimately, I think I prefer the gas station port.
It's hard for me to pick one, but I don't have to because this is my show. But I see each one of them as valid. For nostalgia, obviously the Dreamcast, but like also for nostalgia the GameCube, and with also one other reason why I'd say the GameCube is because of the Game Gear ports. I understand that Sonic Origins Plus has these Game Gear games on it, but I don't know. I feel like I really like the GameCube port of DX, but when it gets right down to it, I have to go with the Xbox/modern ports. So with that being said, let's move on to the goods and the bads. So, the goods, let's go on with it. How about you start?
I hear people say that, like, oh, Sonic Adventure is just, it's 1/6 of it is Sonic, and I think that anyone who says that failed to do, like, the bare minimum amount of research on this game, because Sonic has double the levels of Tails, Knuckles, and Gamma, and even more than that for Amy and Pig. So I think the great thing about it is if you don't like the other modes, you can just play as Sonic and enjoy his campaign. He's, you know, available at the very start of the game. But I do think that there is a lot of fun to be had with Tails, Knuckles, and Gamma as well. I think Amy and Big being playable is neat. I have problems with them that I'll talk about in the bad, but maybe you'll talk about them in the good. We'll see. But I just think all four of those other campaigns are a lot of fun. I like the intertwining stories. I like how everybody has a call flashback except Knuckles, who gets 3 of them since it's linked to his heritage. It just felt like every character got something special for their story, and even though I'm not as big on Amy gameplay-wise, I really do like her role in the game, and I like her story in the game, and how she ties into things. I remember Hoodwinked when I was younger, just like always loving the seeing the same story from different perspectives. So the fact that Adventure did that so early on with the series was always a lot of fun for me.
Yeah. I'm sorry, just you connected it in a weird way. But I see you. Anyways, one of the things that I wanted to say, which I do actually bring up in my gameplay segment, is the fact that I feel like a lot of people definitely do not give the other characters credit. One of the things that I brought up in the gameplay segment, and I'm going to elaborate more on here, and if it sounds redundant, it's because my show kind of runs into that, but one of the things that I want to make very clear is that this game is kind of a marvel in the fact that not only is it Sonic's jump to 3D, but it's his friend's jump to 3D as well, and they are actually very well done, and I'd argue competently done. Each character feels well enough to play, and each character feels great, and I think that that's something that we take for granted, and a lot of people do as well. I get it that you might want the speed and whatever, but they made multiple characters and argumentatively multiple different games all in one, and it works out very well. And that's something that, like I said, I think we definitely take for granted. A lot of people like to look at Mario 64, but remember, they only did Mario. They didn't add Yoshi, they didn't add Luigi with his flutter jump, or Princess Peach with their levitation, and they just had the chance and luxury to focus on Mario, where this game focused on multiple characters, and I think they nailed it on the head. I understand that you don't like Amy, but I feel like if you understand, I feel like, not to diss you or anything, but I do feel like if you are able to play Amy in a very specific way, she plays kind of more in a fun way, especially if you take the hammer and use it as a jump and also use it as a kind of a run kind of thing. Now, is that good? No, because and we'll talk about that in the bads actually, because I do have some gripes with it, because it makes it inaccessible. It's something that you have to learn and the game doesn't tell you, which is a bad, but we'll get into that later.
I'll even say that I think that maybe saying it belongs in the bad category is unfair, because I think this comes down to personal preference. And I do like how you can mess with Amy's hammer abilities, and I do think that's a lot of fun. I just wish the character was sped up a bit. I think that trying to get away from that robot is tedious. That's kind of my main issue with Amy. And I guess with Big, it's like, even then, it's like, it's not fun as the other modes, but I mean, it functions fine. In Big story mode, they also fail to communicate certain information to you and how you actually latch the fish on, so people got really confused. That's how you get the fucking Game Grumps playthrough of it. But like, I'd say that it's still like, if you just try to look at what it is from a technical standpoint and the mindset of what Big is supposed to be, not everything about Big is bad. And it might come down to preference, but it is, not a lot of people are going to have the preference of liking Big.
Yeah, and I think that we'll definitely talk about it in the bad, because even though we might not say it's bad, we still have to kind of talk about it. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things is with Big is I do have to agree that it's not be everybody's cup of tea, but there is the Sega Big Bass fishing game, and there are multiple fishing games that exist. Now, does that need to be in Sonic? Probably not. And once again, we'll talk about that in the bads, but, you know.
A big defense of Big, though, if you just kind of want to look at what the intention of him is and how they pulled it off, is Big's story and like his theme song are so disconnected from everything else going on, where he's just in the middle of this. I'm gonna bring fucking Hoodwinked up again with the fucking lumberjack character. Big is the lumberjack. He is just the character that is like in the middle of this and it has no bearing on him. What he is trying to do couldn't be more further removed from what everyone else is doing. And I not only think that's funny, but I also think it's kind of clever. I think it's kind of clever to get this perspective. And Fishin' is such an extreme difference gameplay-wise to go with the extreme difference that Big is as a character. So I have grown to appreciate Big as time has gone by, mostly because once you learn how to do the gameplay, it's really not that bad. But also, it's a really fucking catchy main theme for Big. I don't know. I actually do think there is a defense for Big. A lot of people don't like. He's kind of declared as the worst part of the game, and I agree with that just because I think the other parts are so good. But I do think there is a defense for Big the Cat.
And here it comes. It plays into what I was talking about on how they practically programmed multiple games. Big isn't just about catching Froggy. If you want to, you can catch the other fish within the level. Now, how that works isn't great, because if you fail, it does take a life. But it's still cool that they programmed other fish that are catchable. And I also like how they have badnik fish that are catchable as well, too, in certain levels. And I really enjoy that. I like the idea of Eggman just sitting out and throwing badnik fish out in the world, even though I don't think that's exactly where they are. But I remember seeing them, and I do enjoy that. I do enjoy the idea that they programmed practically a whole nother game into this one game. And that's something that I think we really need to give them credit for.
Get involved in the same shit that our heroes are getting involved in, like Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, 4 heroes that we're already familiar with. Literally a creation of Robotnik, who is, starts off as an antagonist, but we slowly see turn into a protagonist. But then there's just Big the fucking cat. He's just there, and I think I do think that's an interesting angle. I do. I think it's fun to see, because it's kind of like what is a normal what would it be like if a normal person interacted with this world? It's not going to be like fucking Chris Thorndike where all the heroes want to be his best friend. No, Big the cat is a way better approach to that idea, I think.
I think another thing that I want to bring up also within this game is how it presents itself, making a very iconic kind of style to Sonic that has realistically not been redone, but almost it's impossible to do as well due to the fact that it's no longer on the Dreamcast. But I will say that this game's presentation and look is iconic and almost unforgettable.
The game looks awesome, the level layouts look awesome, the character models look awesome. I do prefer how they look in Dreamcast, but I don't think that they're completely ruined in DX. I think they should have been a little less shiny in DX, that's my main note. Some of them actually look almost spot on the same, though, like Big and Gamma look very similar. But I also gotta say, the fucking soundtrack, I already mentioned, like, the song, like, Big song, all the characters have songs that are, like, pretty relevant to them, and the only one that doesn't have lyrics is Gamma, but even that has some significance to his character and his arc.
I think one of the greatest things about Gamma's is it's not only is it relevant, but it's a song that plays and has different versions of it, sad and slow, fast, and it's really good on how it emotes, and I absolutely love it. I think one of the things I also love about it is there is kind of a beautiful wonder that comes through Gamma's theme of the idea of machinery. It's quite beautiful, despite the fact that he's ran by a flicky.
The emotions are being communicated through the sound instead of the lyrics. And I think that works really well for Gamma, yeah.
And I know this is technically cheating, but if you don't like these versions of the theme songs, they do return in Sonic Adventure 2, where if that's your preference, that's fine too. And now, they're not one-to-one in Sonic Adventure 2, but it is cool that their themes are so strong and so relevant, and the fact that the team that worked on this game wanted to carry that over, which is something that if they ever make a Sonic Adventure 3, they should do.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think another thing that's cool too is, like, they are so different, but both are, like, valid in their own right, to where there's, like, versions of these songs I prefer from Adventure 1 and versions that I prefer from Adventure 2. Sonic's theme Adventure 1, 100%. I like the cover of it for Adventure 2. I like how chill it is, where the second game almost has a more laid-back feel to it, where the first DX or, Adventure 1 has... the song almost is treating itself like it's the most important thing going on right now, and in the terms of playing the game, I guess it is. But but I gotta say, for Tails, then I do really like the version of Tails' theme in Adventure 1, but in Adventure 2, I just think that they, like, added so much more to it, and it sounded great. I actually like the Adventure 2 version of Tails' theme better than. So yeah, there's really, like, no right or wrong answer with those. They're both, like, really solid. And on top of that, just like all the music and the visuals, I just gotta say, this game's cool. The cool factor, I'm sorry, I'm almost done, and I'll be quiet for a second, but the cool factor is something I hear people bring up a lot, and it's something that I think a lot of Sonic games lack, and it's not always necessary. Sometimes the games do want to show off a more heroic side, or they do want to show off a friendlier side. But Sonic Adventure, man, it's just cool. It has that, like, fucking 90s going into early 2000s edge to it that just, like, it's oh my god, it's so part of that time period. It reflects that period so well.
But I'd also argue that it's timeless as well. You could still play this game today and not have any issues.
I agree. I still love it. I still fucking love it, and it's just like, it's one of those things where it's like, it doesn't matter how old I get. When I listen to this game's soundtrack, it's like, oh, it's still fucking cool.
See, I feel like the thing is, the cool factor is something else that I think Sega does need to adopt as well within today for Sonic, because I do think it is kind of missing. You could disagree, but the Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 are flat-out cool games, and I feel like that whole aesthetic needs to return, and one of the reasons why I think it's cool is because it does have a I don't give a shit what you think attitude. It takes itself as seriously as it needs to, but also knows that this is a fucking game. I mean, after all, one of the bosses is literally built up of Dreamcasts.
Frontiers had it in the boss fights, in the Titan fights. It'd be cool if they could have a game where it's present throughout, though, Because I feel like with Adventure, I keep saying DX because that's the one I grew up with. Adventure just has that throughout the entire game. No, go ahead.
And I think my last statement that I want to bring in here is the upgrades are one of the things that makes this game timeless, along with the Chow Garden, but is done better in the future. But I think the upgrades are something that I absolutely love, and I think is iconic to the adventure games. Now, within this one, it's more about finding... nope, in Adventure 2, you find them too. You're not given all of them, and I think that there's something about that within the gameplay that adds replayability and brings mystery and wonder to the franchise that I think is missing once again in the Sonic franchise today. I love all of the upgrades in this game. Are they as good as Adventure 2? No. I'll get to Adventure 2 later, but I do like that they're here. I like that you can find them. I like that they're in places that I would never think of, and they allow you to explore the overworld, which is something a lot of games don't fucking do.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Like Knuckles' golden gloves and shit like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And last but not least, I know that there's a lot of people that have issues with the gameplay, but I actually have not had that many issues, and that might just be because I'm lucky. Yes, I've come across some glitches, but I think that this game is competently put together, especially if you think about it in the time that it was made, and I think that that's what people really forget. This was a game that was made in the 90s, where 3D games were either Mario 64 or fucking Bubsy, or Resident Evil, stuff that was not a high-speed platformer. So I feel like at the end of the day, we gotta give it a little bit of slack, and I think that what is here works out very well. With that being said, let's move on to the bads. So here we are at the bads, and this is where I normally feel the most uncomfortable in my show, but with this one, I don't feel that uncomfortable, mainly because I can skirt the blame on you this time.
Hey.
You're the Sonic channel, so
Yeah.
I feel like it does more damage for you than me.
Probably. Can I name my biggest problem with this game?
Is it big?
No.
Go for it.
Conveyance. I think that there's parts of the game where you can get lost and things can be kind of confused, and I think you mentioned it with Amy and her hammer attack and the proper way to play as Amy. Big catching the fish isn't conveyed well. There's also parts where you can get lost in the hub worlds. Now, there is the little Tikal spirit there that kind of helps guide you the way, but I swear to God, the part that I always got so fucking stuck at when I was a kid was the part where, you know, like when Tails finds the emerald and then Froggy takes it, and then they're like in the weird sand level.
Yeah.
I understood I needed to be on that side of the forest in the Mystic Ruins. I had no idea where, because it's just randomly placed somewhere in the forest. And it's, as a kid, especially as a kid, it's so easy to get lost there because everything looks the fucking same. It's not even that big of a map, but it's like, what happened is I eventually memorized where it was because I played the game so many times, but that first time I was like looking around the map for hours, and I just happened to never go down the correct path. I went literally everywhere but the correct path.
You know, and that's a thank God that I have you on here, because that's something that, unfortunately, when you play games over and over again, as much as we have, that's something that I personally forgot to bring up. I definitely have to agree with you, because as you say this, one of my ones that I hate is the Knuckles statue, right? Where you have to go to some random-ass part in the forest, dig it up, and then place it on whatever. I understand that, once again, yes, there's Tikal and stuff, but man, you are 100% right about that, because same thing with Tails, and even same thing with Sonic. After you do the windy whatever at level thing, you know, there's so many moments in this game that could definitely get you lost. And I just have to, I hate to agree with you on it, but yeah, you are right. The conveyance is not always there, especially in the overworld.
I remember getting on Sonic's campaign, getting lost with the, you know, the ring dash shoes. Because like we made it to the casino level, it wants you to do something. I don't really know what it wants me to do. Like, and once I found out about the ring dash shoes, I don't know where to fucking go.
I even also have to argue the same thing with the casino level, is that I've also been lost with Knuckles within there and other places because of the way the Emerald Radar is at its best in this game, but it's still not the best, period. And I also have to mention that in the casino level for Sonic, they don't really they tell you, yeah, you need rings, but that's very defeating of the purpose of Sonic. You're not supposed to give rings to something, and I feel like if you're a child, that I really am just telling on myself. But when you tell me that I need rings to, get to the Chaos Emerald, it kind of made me like, what are you talking about? Plus, the pinball wasn't that well done either in this game. As much as I love seeing Nights into Dreams, the pinball didn't feel as good as it really should have. But whatever.
The pinball can be very annoying if you're trying to skip the pinball altogether and just go to the level, because honestly, you can get the rings you need just by skipping to the level portion.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I hate playing the pinball. I hate doing that, especially if I gain 300 rings playing pinball and then go down into the sewer and lose all of that right away. It's like, oh fuck, I should have just done the sewer right away.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? That's actually another bad of this game. The casino level isn't good. There's good things about it, but as a whole, I'd say it's like the one level in the game where it's like, I don't like it.
Yeah.
I like the Knuckles version because you just kind of get to explore the area and find the emerald pieces. I would agree it's flawed, but I do think it's good overall.
You also get to break a statue of Sonic.
Yeah, exactly. But then Sonic's version of the level is very long and tedious, and even though, again, it's kind of fun to run through it as Sonic for a minute, I always spend too much time there. I'm always, like, ready for it to be over. And then Tails just skips the casino altogether, so I think it's definitely the weak link of the game.
Mm-hmm. I think another thing that I also have to bring up is the fact that going into Conveyance, I've played the game so much that I figured out the Amy technique, because when you hit her hammer on the ground and you can do a light jump and then it keeps her momentum going. The game never tells you that though, and I think it's actually a glitch. I don't think it was intended, because when you do her hammer jump, and if you do it as a light hammer jump, she just continues her momentum as her full speed, which once again I do not think is intentional.
Well, let's make a deal, Chris. Next time I'm playing Adventure, which realistically will not be long from now. In fact, it'll probably be me gathering footage for my portion in this video. When I make it to Amy, play with, sit on me for that one, and make sure I'm doing the technique right, because maybe I could grow to appreciate Amy. I don't hate Amy's gameplay, and I don't even hate Big's really. It's just, to me, they're the weaker links. But perhaps if I could master Amy, I would be able to put her up with the other four. I just think that the speed is what gets to me. The speed, it's not that everybody needs to be as fast as Sonic, because honestly no character in the game is as fast as Sonic, and I'm fine with that. But it's just I like the pacing was off to me. That's all it was.
Can I be honest with you? Even with that glitch, it doesn't make it better.
Okay.
I'll sit in with you. It makes it a little more fun, because instead of you're now playing with a little bit more speed, and you're able to kind of, it feels like you're cheating, really. But but I don't think the robot's aggressive enough. And here's my problem. I'm a person that likes being hunted in these kind of games, because after all, it's what happens in the remake of Resident Evil 2, it's what happened in Resident Evil 3. It's what happens in games like Clock Tower. I enjoy the hunt. It's just this one, the robot sucks. It's not really that threatening. If anything, he's annoying.
Yeah, give him a scarier design, or make attacking him feel more satisfying. He just falls over for 2 seconds and gets back up.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. You got me once. There's a moment in the game where he shows up on the TV and then breaks through. Do more of that shit. Play with the presentation a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because they had a scene with the Hall of Mirrors with the creepy music playing, and they don't even play with it in that scene. You know?
Yeah.
And that was a great opportunity. They should have done this, because you're right, the TV scene is probably the coolest.
And that's near the end of the game.
Oh yeah. I think it's her last level, isn't it?
I think so. With that being said, though, hey Sega, if you're gonna do a remake, let's do that. Because I think what would be really cool is, imagine instead, once again, this is on the Dreamcast, so what I'm pitching is absolute bullshit, but imagine if he's destroying Twinkle Park to get to Amy, right? Wouldn't have that been cool to see him crashing through some of the buildings? You can do that because there's set pieces. Now, I understand that you can't technically do that because that would require them to make a new Twinkle Park, and they use the same one for everybody, technically, but you know what I'm saying? I think it'd be cool if they gave Amy, or it really just anybody, a little more than they do, but that's an absolute dream pitch that has fucking nothing to do with what we have here.
I have another bad to bring up. I'm sorry if I don't know if you have more to say about that.
Nope, I'm done.
Okay. This one's a smaller bad. It's more, it kind of falls more into nitpick territory, but I genuinely mean it.
That's what the show's about.
I should not have to fight Fish Chaos 3 times.
You know
I should
what?
not have to do that plane sequence 4 times.
You know what? Yeah, I think it'd be really cool. I want to fight you on it, but I agree. I see why the programmer... I can arguably see why it happened in programming, but also, no.
You know what they could have done, and I understand that this would have been more work on them, and the game already has a lot of, like, content in it, so
yeah.
You could say this is me being ungrateful. But, like, what if one of the, like, say Knuckles goes off to fight Robotnik, and Sonic and Tails fight Fish Chaos? You only have to fight Fish Chaos in 2 campaigns, and then Knuckles can have a completely different boss fight there.
I think, if I can argue something that I think would have been better, is that, so, and hear me out, this is me talking shit without understanding the specs of the console. I was going to argue it makes sense that you fight Fish Chaos 3 times. Except for the fact that maybe instead they should ask you before the fight happens. Because here's why. If you didn't beat him in Sonic's campaign, then you should have to fight him in Tails' campaign. Right? The memory card should be read. And if that can't be happening, why the hell do you have it? Right? I feel like because the game is, in the Dreamcast version at least, it would have been harder to do. But in other versions, if the memory card read that you've already done this segment, I think it would be better to skip. And I feel like that's something that should be brought in today.
Or make some slight adjustment, because now Adventure 2 had to do this because Sonic and Eggman control so fucking differently. They could not do the same boss battle for them. But when he fights the Golem, when you're playing Team Dark, like Team Dark's campaign, it shows Sonic defeat him in the cutscene, because it did happen in the game. And then Robotnik has to fight him because Robotnik insulted him and the Golem's pissed at him, but it's a different fight now. The damage that Sonic did is already there. So even though it is a repeat of the fight, there is not only a different way to defeat him, but it is also, like, story-wise, it is after the fight with Sonic already happened. So it has enough going for it to make it, even though it's like a repeat of the fight, it's just different enough to stand out. And I think they should have done something like that with Fish Chaos. Granted, there's less of an opportunity, but I'm sure they could have thought of something. I don't know, I just don't like doing the same shit over and over again.
And also, this is once again my nitpick. This game, I've noticed something that happens with video games, and you might notice this looking back at it too. The full motion videos are worse than the actual game's in-game cutscenes.
Mm-hmm.
And why I say this is because the first time we see the egg carrier was cool as fuck back in the day, but now it's kind of fuzzy, and also due to the fact that the egg carrier is so big and cannot be rendered correctly, in some of the cutscenes where it's in the levels with the people, and it's not as big as it should be, it's all blurry and textureless. Not a big issue in modern day, it's just something that I've noticed, and it's something that I'm bringing up. It doesn't really affect the game, it's just something that I've noticed.
A nitpick I have on something similar with the egg carrier is that whenever it's switching shape, even though it's a cutscene, if you try to skip it, it pauses the game.
Yeah. Doesn't it, like, get rid of the egg carrier, too? Like, it's just the sky?
I think you're right, yeah.
With that being said, though, oh, hold on. And also, this isn't a bad. This is more of a disappointment. I love the Chows. I really do. But goddamn, did you guys do so much better in 2.
It's like, it was a neat idea in Adventure 1, but it's kind of obsolete with Adventure 2. Because no one's ever going to want to play the Adventure. The only thing that Adventure 1 has over Adventure 2 is that the gardens themselves are kind of cooler. But even then, but yeah, and also with that in mind, Adventure 2 does kind of have fun with the good and bad aesthetic. So even then, I could imagine someone arguing with me on that. I like how big they are in Adventure 1. I thought that was always neat. My only other gripe, and it's another boss battle gripe, is the fucking Knuckles and Gamma fight. They're a fucking disgrace. Oh no. Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no. Done.
Yeah.
That's like... They could have tried a little harder. They could have tried a little harder with that. The boss fights in this game actually aren't that bad. Some of them are really creative. I actually really like Sonic and Tails' final fight in their story modes. And then, you know, Final Chaos is, or Perfect Chaos is a really, like, iconic fight. I love it a lot. It's actually a little difficult too. I do appreciate that. All three of those fights are pretty difficult. Tails is kind of easy, but Sonic's final fight, there's a lot of opportunity to fuck a jump up. And if you fuck a jump up, you're dead.
Hey, Spidey, this is the bads.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, that's the thing though, like, because the bringing up the bads in this remind you of the goods because of how many goods there are.
Yeah, that's great, but this isn't your show, so like...
It could be.
I
can talk about the green guy with the sword. I can do it.
I can't wait for the "it could be" drawing that Olivia's gonna put here.
I can talk about Metroid and his adventures.
With that being said, I'm finished with what I have to say on the bad.
At the beginning, I have another bad. At the beginning of the game, Sonic jumps off a building and is unharmed. That's not realistic. He would have died from the fall.
Anyways, I'll see you in the final thoughts. You big drip. So with that being said, does Sonic Adventure hold up? Well, I think so, but you're not really here for me, are you? You're here for the kind of grayish-blue hedgehog thing, aren't you? Is that's what you're here for? Whenever I do a crossover, you guys show up for that, but you don't show up for my other videos. I'm fucking joking. I don't really care who shows up, but no.
I think your audience is here for you.
Anyways, what's your thoughts?
I think that I think it holds up, and I think that, like, if you look at older videos of me talking about this game, you'd have to search, by the way, but they're out there. I talk about it in more of a negative light, and I think I just kind of let a lot of the internet criticism affect my perspective on it, and I'm really glad that I broke out of that, because looking back at this game, it's like, man, this is just everything I want out of a game. It's so fun for me. Like, it's just so, I like the different stories, how they intertwine, I like the gameplay. I think that they're all pretty fun to control in their own way. Obviously, I like some more than others, and Sonic is easily the best one, but I mean, that's a given. He gets the most levels and everything. The game's built around him. But it's, I really enjoy the entire experience, and I think the only thing that hasn't held up is the Chow Garden, and that's just because they got better as time went by, and that's not a bad thing.
I think one of the most interesting things about this game to me is that I played Sonic on the Sega Genesis, and it wasn't until I got talked to about Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic Adventure at elementary school, where I'm not that old, calm down, but but
80 years ago.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it is kind of old now, isn't it? But back in elementary school, that's what got me into Sonic, realistically, was these games, because of how unique they are, and they still are unique to this day. I have never had a hatred towards the Sonic franchise. I've had, well, everything's bad, but this take on Sonic. But the adventure games is something that I could have never turned on because of the fact that they're, one, what got me into Sonic. Yes, I liked Sonic, but I liked Sonic like I liked Mario, of where I appreciated it, it was cool, but I thought it was dead at a point. I thought it stopped at the Genesis. With my surprise of what Sonic has become in the adventure era, that's something that I'll never forget, and it's a game that is still, to me, and I feel like to have replaced it, timeless, because it is such a unique and giant jump to 3D, and I think it did an amazing job.
Hell yeah. I'm completely with you.
I think one of the things that I think is people take for granted what this game did. I want that to be hammered in this episode. I think a lot of people took for granted what this game was and what it did. Yes, Sonic is the best, but it is his game. I think what they did with multiple characters within not only the writing of Tails and other characters as well, dealing with subjects such as, bettering themselves and trying to be better, and genocide and many other stories that have this, and dealing with many other Sonic stories, I think this is one of the best, only being outdone by Sonic Adventure 2. And I'll talk about that later.
And can I make one other defense of the other characters that why I think they're so important to this game?
Go on.
Is Sonic is absolutely the most fun character to play as. At the same time, and I don't say this as an insult because I think it's deliberate, he has the least interest in story. And I think it's intentional because Sonic's story is... Sonic knows exactly who he is.
Yeah.
And he goes for the game like he goes through anything. And the game's... the series was never too worried about his character at this point. He was just... his character is just pure competence, Mm-hmm. But he also has the actions to back up that confidence. But for Tails, it's learning to stand on his own. For Knuckles, it's him trying to discover his purpose. For Amy, it's her wanting to be treated with the same respect. She wants to go on adventures. She's living in a city now. Living in Station Square, has a pretty generic life. We see her doing a mundane task at the beginning, like grocery shopping, where I think Amy actually has one of the best stories in this game. Gamma has Gamma probably does have the best story in this game. It's so interesting. And it's not like just part of the story from a series. It's all he has, so it's like really able to let everything out there. And then even Big is kind of endearing, just a guy trying to find his buddy, not really sure what's going on, never finds out why what happened, but doesn't matter to him. He got his friend back, and that's all he cared about. So I think that without those characters, what is the story of this game? It would have been a storyless game, which would still be good. A lot of Sonic games have no story. A lot of fan games and a lot of official games have no story, or the story is minimal, like it's mainly explained in guidebooks, but or manuals. But I think if you take those other 5 campaigns out of this, you lose so much. Not just gameplay, but you lose like the entire personality of this game.
And I think that's kind of the thing, is, like I said, we take that all for granted. Especially since I think that this is also a great game if you're a kid. Obviously, as an adult, it's great too. I feel like as an adult, you grasp it more, but as a kid, it does help you confront some bigger topics, such as characters passing on. I know that sucks, but
yeah,
you do have to deal with that. Gamma does not make it. Yes, there are other robots like him in the Sonic franchise, but they're antagonists, right? They are not like him. He is special. The only one that is arguably close to that is Emerald. But, like, come on. do you even know who the fuck that is?
Well, let's also give, Sonic Team this. Gamma and Chip are probably the only 2 characters that they haven't, that you spend the game with, that they haven't gone back on after they're gone. When they're gone, they're gone. I know that there's characters like Maria and characters like Tikal who are no longer with us either, but they're not characters that you're playing with or have with you throughout the entire game, So, Shadow, they brought him back. Sage, they brought her back. They actually completely retconned the ending with the final update, and I'm fine with that. I'd kind of like if they kept Shadow dead, but I'm okay with what they did with Sage.
Bold standpoint there.
I love Shadow. I just think his arc's more fulfilling.
Wouldn't it have been cool if he came back in Generations, like the game that they're doing now? Wouldn't it have been cool if he was dead for that long and then they decided to bring him back now?
Yeah, that, and this is something that I'm not the first person to say this. I think could have been interesting? What if he was a fucking android?
Yeah.
He has the same personality, he has a lot of the same memories, but he's not him. I think that would have been interesting. I think they should have, that was a really cool idea that Shadow, his actual game had, and I think they should have done more of that.
With that being said,
I'm so sorry. You got me talking about the series again, and then we get so off topic so easily. In conclusion, awesome game. I love it. Any problems I have with it are completely overshadowed by what I love about it. I bring up the negatives because it makes the conversation interesting. It's fun to talk a bit deeply about this game and its mechanics, but it might be like even with the problems, it's just like... It feels weird to give it a 10 out of 10 since I'm blatantly naming things wrong with it, but I'm trying to think of games out there that mean this much to me. There's not a lot.
I think the thing that's interesting is, as a person that is as hardcore as I am into gaming, there's been many experiences like this, but this is why I love doing a show like this. Because it allows me to go back and share a game that feels to me that is timeless. And I think that, all in all, I think that this game majorly holds up, and it's an experience that I definitely would recommend at least you trying at least once, if you never have.
Oh yeah, a lot of fan games coming out nowadays are starting to adapt the adventure gameplay rather than the classic Genesis gameplay. Genesis is still the most popular, I think, but making a 3D game is hard, especially if you're like doing it solo. But
yeah,
But I mean, when I say fan games, I don't even necessarily mean Sonic fan games. I mean games that are like taking tons of inspiration from the series, like that DX. I keep calling it DX. That adventure style is being picked up by a lot of indie projects now, and it's so easy to see why. And I think that's why it's worth checking out to this day.
Okay. So with that being said, any other final thoughts you have? I think that another thing that's interesting about this episode, outside of itself, is that this is the last time we're gonna not hear about this game from you, but this is the closest we're ever gonna get for a while for you to actually talk about this game.
Yep. Should I provide a little bit of context to why?
Absolutely, if you want to.
For anyone who watches my channel and is aware of like the Last Call series, unless I change my mind, which I don't think I'm going to, the final game covered on the channel is going to be this one, because I always knew that I wanted to end it on a high note. I didn't want to like make the last game I cover to be one that I only think is okay, or one that I just flat out don't like. So I'm like, yeah, Adventure like 1 needs to be the final game.
Yeah.
Because we can end on such a high note, like Perfect Chaos being the final thing that we do for a playthrough on that channel, to me just feels right. Live and Learn would have been there too, but I already did that one. I caved in really early with Adventure 2.
Well, I mean, you made an amazing episode with that, but I think all in all, this episode is special to me because I get to share something with you, and I get to share something with all of your viewers a little early. Because it's interesting, and your strides and your growing is... You know what's really great about this game is this game reminds me a lot of you, because it's a game that kind of is timeless, right? It's a game that kind of is something that we'll always look back on, and with you, Spidey, you specifically, you're something that I will always look back on fondly, despite the fact that we definitely have issues.
No, I appreciate that, Chris. And it is kind of funny how many like different like points of my life this game can make me feel nostalgic for, because I can think back. There will be a point in my life where I can like think of this game and think back to when I was a kid playing it, and then there'll be times like way in the future I'll be thinking about Spiny and all the stuff that I did with you and our other friends. Like it's just it's a special game.
And if I could end this on a very personal note, because I wanted to end this on a joke, and we still can, but one of the things that's very interesting about this game is that to share this game with you, this episode is very on purpose, because this game means so much to me, and you as a person mean so much to me. So I think that it's very interesting that I get to kind of share this episode with you.
Same. Feeling is mutual.
With that being said, though, the restraining order is still happening. I am not fucking doing Sonic Blast again. That shit's just not happening. No,
there's a fan remake of it coming out, and it's different.
No. It's a restraining order. It's kind of weird.
That's weird.
Next time we do this, better yet, the next time you do this, is the end, isn't it?
I mean, you know, unless plans change, but yeah, I guess Adventure is the last game I plan on covering.
Damn.
Well, I'm gonna take off.
What?
Yeah, I just need some time to think.
Man, what the fuck?
Jak się tu dostałem? Chrisa?
Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Hi.
Jak się stąd wydostać?
What? I am so sorry. Ogorki?
Tak?
Oh man, shit. I'm so sorry. I don't want to come off as insensitive. I don't think I understand you. Shit. So, I guess you're probably wondering how you're gonna get home. You'll probably just fade back into your universe.
Okej. Jak długo to zajmie?
I am so sorry. We really haven't hung out by ourselves, so I just,
Tak? Westchnienie. Może nadszedł czas, aby zainwestować w napisy.
What?